Whether thou art a ghost that hath come from the earth, or a phantom of night that hath no home, or one that lieth dead in the desert, or a ghost unburied, or a demon, or a ghoul, whatever thou be until thou art removed, thou shalt find here no water to drink. Thou shalt not stretch forth thy hand to our own. Into our house enter thou not. Through our fence break through thou not. We are protected, though we may be frightened. Our life you may not steal, though we may be scared to death.
Welcome to Scared to Death, Creeps, Peepers, Roberts, and Annabelles. I'm Dan.
Hello, Dan. I'm Lulu Marie.
Okay,
yeah,
Lulu
sure,
Marie.
that feels good.
You were going to, I believe, share a little holiday reminder, and then I'll mention merch, and then we'll get into the stories.
Yeah. So listen, guys, we know it's the holiday season. Most of us who listen to this show are adults with parents who are like, what do you want for Christmas? You know, and we probably have all the things that we want and need. Well, we probably have everything we need. Maybe you don't have everything you want. And so, therefore, did you know that Patreon could be gifted? So all you have to do is go to patreon.com/scared-to-death, send that link to your hopefully parents who understand how the internet works, and they can just scroll down and choose gift, and then they can gift it to you. And it's like, if your parents are going to give you $100 or $50 or whatever, it's like, why not just have them give you something that you really want, which is ad-free episodes, a week early, bonus content, 20% off on all your merch, and a portion of your Patreon support goes to charities and scholarship. So there you have it. There's my pitch.
There's your pitch. And then I'll pitch our merch real quick. We have some new holiday designs in the store at badmagicproductions.com.
Give us all your money.
If you want to head over there and check them out, I have been terrible when it comes to promoting the store lately, and I honestly forget how much cool stuff we have there. Some fans were wearing some of our designs on the Crime Wave cruise recently, and more than once I thought oh, that's a cool shirt, because I love graphic tees, and then I find out it's one of ours.
You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. We did that? Cool.
And now, stories.
Stories. Okay, well, I have two this week, and they're both just kind of interesting little head scratchers, I would say. My first tale comes from an attorney who had a bizarre, unexplainable experience while visiting a client in prison.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so an interesting combination of things there. And then my second story takes us to a tale from a grad student and a pupil that he was working with, and an experience that they had collectively on a particular day during school.
All right. I'm looking forward to hearing those, and I am very excited about my stories. I'm always excited, but this week, maybe more than the last few weeks as far as these are really good ones. For my first of two, we will dig into the old case files of famed demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren, and share a little-known case of theirs about a grieving family heirloom, a century-old pact, and a wooden box that sometimes cries from the inside.
Okay.
For my second, we'll examine what many consider to be America's first documented ghost story. At the end of the 18th century, a young Maine farm girl grew sick. Then a strange knocking started in her family's cellar, followed by a woman's voice claiming to be the dead wife of a local sea captain, George Butler. Soon, a glowing figure of light is arranging a controversial marriage and making a deadly prophecy.
Weird.
Was Sullivan, Maine really home to America's first documented ghost, or did something far darker wear Nelly Butler's face? That's a really good one.
Okay.
What pre-story ritual socks have you put on today?
Okay, listen, I just want to tell you guys a brief story about these socks because I think it's very funny. These socks come from fan Rachel, who gave them to me on the Crime Wave at Sea cruise. And she was like, I have to get you these socks. I have to get them to you. She hands them off to me. She's like, I got them when I was in Italy. And they are blue socks with all kinds of different cheeses on them. And then she followed up with an email like, hey, because she didn't write her name on it. She was like, hey, they're from me, my name, whatever. Yeah. Got them when I was in Sorrento, Italy. And there was a selfie of her getting the socks. And the name of the sock store was called, Shopping Victim.
Okay.
It was just so funny.
Random.
And then the back of this has a whole thing about cheese and just how the spread of cheese began in the 13th century in Italy. And in Italy, there are currently 487 cheese varieties. And they just call it a cheese paradise. It's just so funny.
Yeah, okay.
Just a really silly little story. And so I've got pecorino, gorgonzola, mozzarella, parmigiano, a cheese I don't know, Cassioto, another one I can't even say, and Asiago. So I got stinky cheese feet.
I just like that somebody thought, you know what, we need cheese socks.
I mean, absolutely. Italy and Wisconsin, they just need cheese socks in both of those places.
Okay, here we go. If you're not here for socks and here for horror. If you know much about Ed and Lorraine Warren outside of the Hollywood adaptations of their cases, you know that a lot of their cases weren't the big, bombastic, demon-hurling, head-spinning encounters that you've seen in the movies. A lot of their real work, the work they documented quietly and privately for many years, typically dealt with something much subtler? Something quieter. Not every case was full of people being thrown around a room and an entity coming and screaming. Some whispered. And in their way, these quiet whispering cases, they're every bit as upsetting and unsettling as the stories that are full of much more activity and are far more well-known. In the spring of 1979, one of these whispering cases arrived at their home in Connecticut, wrapped in linen, and carried by a young woman who claimed she wasn't afraid of what she brought. She was only afraid of what it meant. Time now for the tale of the Lament box. It was April of 1979 when 23-year-old Margot Spencer, originally from Salem, Massachusetts, knocked on the Warrens' door carrying a small cloth-covered bundle. The Warrens were expecting Margot that day. They'd arranged this meetup over the phone. And now Ed invited her in, and Margot placed the bundled object gently on the table. The Warrens noticed that she never looked directly at it. She soon explained that her paranormal troubles began with her grandmother, Eleanor Spencer, her family's matriarch, and a woman who had passed away only a few weeks earlier. And when Eleanor died, Margot inherited a small wooden box, dark timber, small enough to fit in two hands, and fitted with a gold lock, but no visible hinges. It had sat, she had learned, for decades in a locked cabinet, wrapped up and untouched. When Margot received it, it was accompanied by a very strange, mysterious, and ominous handwritten letter. The letter was not dated, and its author was not listed. It shared nothing more than instructions. It's yours now. Do not open it. Do not move it unless necessary. Do not hide it, and never bury it. If you do, be sure you have a replacement. At first, Margot thought it was a joke of some kind, or perhaps some sort of forgotten bit of eccentricity from her grandmother, who was known to sometimes hold unusual beliefs. She thought about opening it. The letter had made her so curious, but as much as she told herself it was silly, it also spooked her enough to leaving the box shut. She tucked the letter away, left the box alone, sitting wrapped in the same cloth in the corner of her room on a shelf. For several days, she ignored it and tried not to think too much about it. But then one night, she heard it. A faint sound, but unmistakable. The sound of someone crying. Not a loud sob, not a wail, but a soft, human lament. Like someone trying to hide their grief, or someone worried about the wrong person hearing them cry. It sounded muffled, weak, and ancient, and it was definitely coming from inside the box. The first time she heard it, it had woken her up. But it was so soft, so subtle, she was able to fall back asleep. In the morning, Margot thought she must have been dreaming. But then the next night it happened again, and now it scared her. So she stayed up with the lights on until eventually she did fall back asleep. She wanted to get rid of it the next day, but she was afraid to touch it. And then that night she heard it yet again. And this time she got up and out of bed and walked toward the sound, trembling, and she pressed her ear to the linen-wrapped wood to be certain that what she was hearing was real and definitely coming from within the box. The sound of crying she heard was unmistakable, and it absolutely was coming from within the box. She couldn't sleep that night, and the next day she began searching for answers that soon led her to the Warrens' front door. Ed listened quietly as she explained all of this to them. Lorraine stood several feet back, staring at the covered object with an expression Margot didn't understand. She didn't reach for it. She didn't lean in. She just went very, very still. And then while Margot and Ed were speaking to one another, Lorraine interrupted them, saying something that froze the room. It isn't crying because it wants out. It cries because it knows someone opened it before, and someone else will have to pay. Ed began doing some digging that same day. He'd eventually spend hours sifting through the Spencer family's genealogical records, birth certificates, obituaries, census logs, and more, and he came across a troubling pattern. Every branch of the Spencer maternal line reached back deep into New England history, back into the 1700s. At quick glance, all the families appeared very ordinary. But when you examined more closely, you couldn't help but notice the deaths. Each and every generation, until the previous 2 generations had lost their youngest child before anyone else had died. Accidents, sudden illnesses, unexplained respiratory failure, obituaries listing unexpected or tragic or peaceful but sudden, always the youngest. Meanwhile, while Ed was doing this digging, Lorraine was investigating the box herself. She never touched it, she never would, but she prayed near it. She opened herself up spiritually and empathically to whatever it was trying to say. She tried sensing whatever spiritual residue might be clinging to it. And she felt so much pain. Soon the full story began taking shape, not from the box itself, but from bits of family history. Old letters, archived newspaper clippings, an almost forgotten childhood diary written in 1889 by Josephine Spencer, Margot's great-grandmother. A diary that was hidden in a safe. One that Margot hadn't opened since Eleanor's death. Inside it, Josephine described her little sister Lillian, just 8 years old, the youngest child of her generation in the family, who had died after weeks of fever, visions, and night terrors. Before she had passed, Lillian had told Josephine that someone kept coming for her while she slept. A shadow, a man without eyes, a figure whose feet never touched the floor. And then not long after this confession, Lillian didn't wake up one morning. When her mother found her, when Josephine saw her as well, her hands were balled up into little fists, her mouth was streaked with dried blood. The doctor ruled that she had died from a respiratory collapse. Josephine was devastated. She also came to believe that the explanation didn't fit, that it was a lie. Just days after her little sister's death, Josephine wrote an entry in her diary that would provide focus to the Warrens' investigation. I dreamed that Lillian had not gone, that she cried from a box, that if I could contain her pain, he would not come for anyone else again. So I went to the woman of the woods, and she gave me the container. But she warned me, if you seal the pain, someone must suffer to keep it closed. Every eldest daughter, or the youngest. And if anyone opens the box, the cry will go out to seek the next. When Lorraine read this, she stepped back, as if someone had slapped her. This isn't holding a spirit, she said softly. It holds a pact. Ed now decided that he needed to thoroughly examine the lament box. And soon after he began, he discovered something shocking, that the lock on it didn't work because it wasn't real. The lid was sealed with invisible nails beneath the lining. It had been built to look locked, to give the illusion of a barrier, but really, it had also been closed because it wasn't built with any way to be opened. The box was never meant to be opened, Ed said. It was meant to warn, to represent the choice, the sacrifice. Lorraine agreed. The crying, she said, isn't a trapped soul. It's the emotion of the one who was offered, the one who carried the pain to seal something else away, something that still wants in. And now with Lillian long dead, with Josephine gone, with Eleanor gone, there was no one left guarding it except Margot. The Warrens decided that the box should never be broken. To do so would have to destroy it entirely. Instead, they planned to surround it with protective elements. Exorcised metals, blessed salt, incense, prayers of renunciation, not to free anything, but to disrupt the generational thread, to break the inheritance pattern. Except something went wrong when they attempted this. Almost immediately after they began preparations, the atmosphere around them shifted. Lorraine felt a heaviness in her chest, and Ed became lightheaded. And then that very night, Margot's younger brother Daniel, 19 years old, away at college, miles from home, and the youngest member of his generation in the family, called his sister in terror. He said that the apparition of a little girl had appeared in his dorm room. When he woke up, she was sitting at the foot of his bed. She didn't speak, she only cried. Her hands, he whispered into the phone to his sister, they were covered in blood. He confessed that this wasn't the first time he'd seen her, and that every time he saw her, she appeared closer than the time before. He worried what would happen to him when she appeared so close she could finally touch him. Margot felt like somebody had knocked the wind out of her. She hadn't told him anything about the box. When Margot called the Warrens and told them, Lorraine closed her eyes. She felt she understood what was happening. The box doesn't open with keys, she thought. It opens with attention, and he's looking. He, as in the spirit that killed little Lillian so long ago, the shadow, the man without eyes. The next night, Daniel collapsed in his dorm, and when he woke, there were marks carved across his chest, 3 thin, parallel scratches that looked as if they'd been made by claws that were far too narrow to be human. He felt like something was watching him, something was choosing him. His sister worried he would die very soon unless they did something, another victim of whatever this was. So Ed got Daniel's number and called him after Margot had filled him in. He held a prayer of deliverance over the phone while Lorraine clasped the wrap box in her arms, whispering prayer after prayer. While they did this, something inside the box started to cry. The crying inside grew louder. It sounded rhythmic and pained. They didn't just hear it, they felt it, the vibration of grief. And while they prayed, a terrible thing happened in the Warren home around the box. The temperature dropped and the air grew thick, and then Lorraine heard, clearly, unmistakably, a child's voice whispering, "Don't take me away. He sees me if you take me away." Lorraine froze as a chill crawled up her spine. She doesn't want to leave, she said, speaking of poor little Lillian's spirit. She thinks he is still looking for her. This wasn't a curse in the traditional sense. This wasn't a demon. This wasn't a haunting. It was a wound, a generational grief sealed but never resolved, held together only by a living witness. And now that witness was gone and the box was calling for another. Ed soon found something else as they continued to investigate, an old letter written by Eleanor Spencer, preserved in a brittle-paged family Bible. The letter read, "The pact is to guard the lament. The one who inherits must be a witness, not a victim. If anyone breaks it, out of cowardice, ignorance, or love, the lament will call another. No one can silence the cry without replacing it. Whoever inherited the box had to keep vigil, or it would claim another soul." Lorraine understood this first, saying, if there's no willing witness, the pain will look for a new victim, and that victim would be Daniel, the youngest. That same night, Daniel dreamt of the girl again, but she wasn't crying this time. Now she was speaking. "You hear me," she said. "You're like me. You're alone." According to his roommate, Daniel began murmuring in his sleep, repeating the following over and over. "I will stay. I will keep it. I will not let it return. I will stay. I will keep it. I will not let it return." This was the exact phrase Josephine had written nearly a century earlier in another diary entry. Ed and Lorraine now felt that the best chance to save Daniel was to perform a ceremony of substitution. Not a magical ritual, not a dramatic exorcism, more of a deliberate act of will. Someone had to choose to carry the lament, consciously and without deception. To be the witness Josephine had once been, the witness Eleanor had been after her, to renew the pact so Daniel would not be taken. When Ed explained this to Margot, the room went silent. And then Margot straightened her shoulders and said, "This burden is my family's. If it doesn't end with me, let it at least pass through me, not him." Shortly following this, they conducted the substitution ceremony. Only 3 people were present for it: Ed, Lorraine, and Margot. They placed the box in a circle of salt, wrapped in the same linen handed down through generations. They set out and lit candles, blessed metals, and they began saying blessings and prayers. At some point, Margot held up Josephine's letter in her hands and spoke clearly. "I choose to be the replacement. I acknowledge the lament. I keep it not out of fear, but so no one else has to carry it." After she said that, the walls did not shake. No shadows rose from the floor. Instead, they all felt a deep stillness and silence. The crying had stopped. Not just faded, but completely stopped. That night, Daniel slept without any strange dreams. He didn't see the girl with blood on her hands. He woke feeling weightless, as if something had finally stepped off his chest. But Margot did not sleep so well. Not because she was afraid, but because she was listening. She was keeping vigil. Following this ceremony of substitution, the Warrens sealed the box using a specially blessed binding formula. Then they returned it to Margot per her request, and she placed it in a secure safe with 3 keys. She told the Warrens she would never display it, never open it, but also never get rid of it. It would never end up in the Warren Museum. As Ed wrote in his case report, "This object was not designed for exhibition. It was created to contain a story, a wound, and it will endure as long as someone hears it." And in Lorraine's final note about this box, she wrote, "The box does not hold evil. It holds sacrifice. The promise of a sister who could not save another and chose to carry her crying. The cry still lives, but now, at least, it is not alone." If Margot is still alive today, and she very likely is, she'd be in her late 60s. She's probably still holding vigil, I imagine. But if she isn't still alive, where's the lament box? Does it sit in a home somewhere, wrapped in linen, still locked away? And if no replacement has been chosen, who hears the crying now? Who will it take next? Who else has it taken already?
That's so weird. I don't know that I even get it.
I know. I've read this so many times, and,
Okay,
I read
good.
their original case file so many times, and it's one of these stories that I wanted to share because it is confusing in moments,
Okay.
for sure, but it also spooks me.
Okay, because I was
There's
like,
also something just weirdly mysterious and creepy about it.
okay, so going back to
Yeah.
the beginning, just help me,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
could, please help me track this.
Sure.
So Lillian dies.
Yeah,
So
let me
she-
make sure that name, Lillian, the grandmother, I believe. Yes. Who would be the daughter of Josephine. Yes, Lillian dies.
Okay. That's the little girl that dies, and that sends one of the other girls into the woods to get the box. I like immediately when that was happening, I got so confused. I was like, wait, it doesn't hold a spirit, it just holds the pain, and then the pain has to get past. I was so confused.
Yeah. Lillian's sister is Josephine. Josephine's daughter is, let's see, Margot's great-grandmother, or no. Josephine is Margot's great-grandmother, and then Josephine's daughter in this story would be Eleanor. So there's Josephine and Lillian, two sisters. Lillian dies. She's the youngest. Josephine's daughter is Eleanor. And then Eleanor's granddaughter is Margot.
Okay, who goes to the woman in the woods to get the box?
Oh, man, I wasn't ready for a quiz.
Oh, sorry. It's just so confusing because I'm like,
Yeah.
So somebody dies.
Yes.
And then a sibling goes to see the woman in the woods to get a box. That's where I got confused. I was like, I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah, I think the woman in the woods. Sorry, this is probably painful for people listening because I have to scroll through.
That's okay. That's okay. We don't have to get into
Yeah.
the specifics. Well, what did you take away from the story? Like what?
Just that it was creepy.
Yeah.
I didn't get too analytical with it. Like I went over it a bunch of times to make
Yeah.
sure that like I was telling it the right way.
Yeah.
And I fully admit like I don't understand pieces of it.
Yeah.
But I just took away that there is some mysterious family lore attached to this box that if you don't hold vigil and you don't like keep the box near, it will to I guess respect the grief or what has happened, that it'll take the youngest member of that generation.
Yeah, well, and it's also concerning. So I'm like, that's a really shitty gift to get. Like
Yeah,
your
I know,
grandmother
yeah.
passes away, and it's like, here's this box, and now it's your turn.
Yeah.
Okay, but
No,
so
it's a weird story. Yeah, for sure.
so as long as Margot keeps vigil of the box, no one else will die. I think.
I don't know.
Yeah, and so I wonder what happens. Like, I'm so curious. Like, I know you don't know the answer, so I'm not
Yeah.
asking you this. I'm just proposing
Sure,
it.
sure.
I'm just saying, where's the box now? Is like, if Margot's alive, what is her plan for the box? Did Margot have children? Like, because
Yeah.
her brother was in college and he was 19. So I know you said her age at the beginning, but I forget. But she was quite young.
She was young, yeah, and this she'd be in her late 60s now.
Yes, but I'm saying at the time of the story, like she was quite young.
Early 20s, I believe.
So it's like she probably didn't have kids
Yeah.
yet. So I'm like, how did this impact Margot's life choices? You know, did she decide not to have kids because she didn't want to have to pass this along? Like, you know, did her brother have kids? And like, is that the youngest family member? I mean, it's just this creepy thing that this relic that is, you know, in the family. And at some point, somebody's going to have to do something about it because Margot will die. So then what happens
exactly.
to the box?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's so strange. I would be,
Yeah, way more questions than answers with this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have pictures?
I do, yeah. This first one is Ed and Lorraine Warren. Just an old black and white photo of them from a 2019 Saturday Evening Post article. There's not really any pictures associated with this story. It's just like in a collection of old case files that didn't get much attention.
Well, I can see why, because it's confusing as hell. There's no resolution, and it's like, but what is going to happen next?
Right. Yeah, there's no pictures of the Lament box out there, but when you search for the Lament box, you'll find a lot of pics of the Lament configuration. It's I bet a lot of our listeners thought of this because there's probably a lot of Hellraiser fans out there. It's a fictional puzzle box, pretty iconic from the Hellraiser franchise, that serves as a gateway to the realm of the extra-dimensional beings known as the Cenobites. Like Pinhead there. And I do wonder if the Clive Barker, who I believe came up with these, I think he came up with the Hellraiser franchise and this box. I'm like, did he come across that old story of the Warrens and maybe that kind of influenced his creation of this mysterious box?
Sure.
Yeah. Because you don't hear the word lament that often either.
Yeah. Yeah. Because what does that word actually mean? Just like sorrow?
Like
to
to
lament?
grieve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe.
Because when you first said it, like, time now for the tale of the Lament box, my brain didn't jump there. I didn't make that connection to grief. I was just like,
Yeah.
oh, I wonder what a lament box is. It's such
Yeah.
an uncommon word, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely rare. I think it was like more common like a century ago as far as usage. Okay, this
Yeah.
next one, I will say this next story, not confusing.
Okay.
So more of a traditional one. You ready to hear it?
Sure.
I feel like there's something weirdly comforting about how most 18th, 19th, and early 20th century ghost stories feel. Seances and Ouija boards, haunted Victorian mansions, old European castles, the Fox sisters rapping on the walls in the 1840s, Victorian spiritualists calling up spirits in candlelit parlors, people sporting big mustaches or wearing frilly dresses, and black and white photos looking very melodramatic. It can all come across as so corny and therefore pretty comforting. However, in America, one of the earliest, best documented hauntings did not start in some Victorian-style parlor or take place in a big, expensive, fancy manor. It started in a much creepier place, a poorly lit, dirty cellar on the edge of a cold Maine bay, underneath a farmhouse that no longer exists. And if you believe the people who lived there, or the more than 100 additional witnesses who swore that, what they heard and saw was real, it all began with a dead woman, or something masquerading as a dead woman, who came back with a very specific, upsetting mission. Make sure my widowed husband marries a teenage girl, and then make sure that she dies just like I did. Let's head back to the late 1700s to the coast of northeast Maine, to the chilly little community of Sullivan, and meet a girl who died in childbirth, and who maybe, just maybe, went on to become America's first documented ghost. Time now for the tale of the haunting of Nelly Butler. Eleanor Nellie Hooper was born on April 25th, 1776, the year of the Declaration of Independence. She was born in Franklin, Maine, not far from the little town of Sullivan, an area featured centuries later as the filming location for parts of the first cinematic adaptation of Stephen King's Pet Sematary. One of 9 children born to David and Joanna Hooper, she grew up in that hard New England world of farms, shorelines, and small churches. At the age 19, Nellie married George Butler, a local sea captain from a prominent family. The Butlers owned a sawmill and land at a spot overlooking the water that people called Butler's Point. That's where George and Nellie set up their life together. Newly married, living on his family's land with the sea feeding their livelihood, their future looked so bright. But that bright light of their marriage would be quickly and tragically snuffed out. In June of 1797, just a few years into their marriage, Nellie went into labor with their first child. And the worst possible outcome became a reality. Both she and the baby died. The child was buried first. Nellie followed her into the ground within 24 hours. Sadly, early America was full of tragedies like this. Women dying in childbirth was heartbreakingly incredibly common. Nellie's story would have vanished completely, if not for one thing. 2 years after she died, people started to hear someone knocking in a neighbor's cellar. And then that knocking was followed by someone heard speaking. In August of 1799, a man named Abner Bladel claimed he started hearing strange sounds coming from beneath his house. He and his family lived in Sullivan near Taunton Bay, a religious, hard-working clan with 7 kids, all of them helping run the family farm. And one August evening, Abner heard knocking from his cellar. Loud raps on the stone foundation, on the beams, and on the underside of the floor itself. Curious, of course, he investigated, heading down with a lantern, looking for loose boards, animals, or anything else that could explain it. But he found nothing. So he tried to shrug it off. Farmhouses make noise. Old cellars creak. However, the distinctive knocking sound kept coming back. This went on for weeks, and then weeks turned into months. By that December, the Bladels had another problem. Their teenage daughter Lydia had become ill. She'd recently returned from a trip to Boston and had come down with some kind of mysterious sickness, fever, general weakness, and she was drifting towards what looked like death. Around the same time, the family kept hearing those raps and knocks from the cellar, but they were louder and more frequent now, always seemingly tied to Lydia's worst nights. Abner was a devout man, the whole family was, so they prayed together, asking that if this was some kind of deception, some trick of the devil, that God would reveal that to them. Conversely, if it was somehow a sign from God, they hoped they would be preserved from harm, that Lydia would live. Then one night in late December, Abner and Lydia both heard something together that neither could write off as old house noises. They heard a woman's voice coming from the cellar now. It wasn't muffled chatter from somewhere in the house. It wasn't someone outside. It was a clear female voice, answering when spoken to, insisting on being heard, and according to them, saying something like, "I'm the dead wife of Captain George Butler. I was born Nelly Hooper." Nelly Butler had been dead for almost 3 years now, and the Bladells would quickly realize she hadn't merely come back to say hi. She had a plan. According to Abner and Lydia, the spirit of Nelly Butler announced that she had come back to arrange a marriage. She wanted her widower, Captain George Butler, now 29, to marry 15-year-old Lydia. It was a very different time, sure, but even then, this age gap was greatly concerning. Abner was horrified, and it wasn't like Lydia was enthusiastically on board either. She was still sick, she was scared, and suddenly she had been caught in the middle of a very bizarre spiritual drama. If she wanted to put all this behind her, she wouldn't be able to. Night after night, the voice came back. It continued to claim it was the spirit of Nelly Butler. She insisted this was God's will. She insisted that the marriage must and would be joined, echoing wedding language of the time about what God joins together. Despite Abner trying to ignore it, the voice would return, sometimes accompanied by strange lights, a whiteness in the air, looking like a human form made of glowing mist. One early account said that this specter was as white and clear in a dark cellar as in an open field in daylight. The ghost of Nelly demanded more than just obedience. She wanted witnesses. She told Abner to go to her father, David Hooper, and to George's father, Moses Butler, to tell them both what was happening. And amazingly, Abner listened. On a snowy day at the very end of 1799, he and Lydia trudged several miles through winter roads to the Butler family farm, then to Nelly's parents' home as well. Lydia told her father she wasn't sure she wanted any part of this, but Abner believed that if this really was a message from heaven, they had to at least seek counsel. For their part, the other men they told were skeptical. Moses Butler thought Lydia and her family were angling for his son's inheritance. David Hooper thought his friend might have lost his mind, or that someone was playing a cruel trick on them from the cellar. But then Nelly would persuade them that all of this was no trick, that she had indeed come back. On January 1st, 1800, Abner walked roughly 5 miles in a snowstorm to fetch David Hooper and George Butler and bring them back to his house at the ghost of Nelly's insistence. They arrived cold, tired, and ready to debunk whatever nonsense had taken hold of their neighbors. But instead, according to their sworn testimonies later, they left as true believers. Down in that cramped cellar, in front of several people, a voice spoke to Hooper out of thin air, claiming to be his dead daughter. The voice reminded him of specific moments from Nelly's life, sharing childhood details that only he and his family would have known. According to Hooper, the spirit gave, quote, irresistible signs that she was indeed Nelly, enough that he went from skeptic to not just accepting her reality, but feeling comforted and delighted that his daughter's soul had lived on. George Butler had a very similar experience. He later testified that when the voice claimed to be his first wife, he challenged it, shouting, "If you're really Nelly, prove it." And she did. Nelly's voice reminded him of a very private conversation they had once had, a quiet moment when she told him she didn't think she would live long, and that if she died first, she wouldn't blame him if he eventually remarried. Butler swore no living person knew about that exchange. It was something spoken between husband and wife with no witnesses, and yet this voice in this cellar repeated it back to him using phrasing specific to that conversation. It was so powerful he broke down in tears. And then, as if that weren't enough, he said he saw something, a figure shaped like a woman in a shroud, holding what looked like a very small child in her arms. He reached out and his hand passed right through the apparition. He later said he could see his hand inside it, but feel nothing. That same night, he said the ghost appeared and vanished several times. The strange lights, the private memories, the disembodied voice, all of it pushed Butler over the edge. Whatever this was, he believed it was really Nelly. And once Nelly had convinced her husband and her father, the haunting exploded. News spreads fast in a small town, especially back then, when there was a lot less exciting news to go around. Within weeks, people from all over Sullivan and neighboring communities were coming to the Bladell house to see the ghost. By February of 1800, the cellar had basically become a type of religious hotspot. People held prayer meetings down there, sang hymns, listened for knocks. They wanted to see if this glowing, talkative spirit would show herself. One of the witnesses, a woman named Mary Gordon, described an encounter that reads like it came from a much more modern paranormal investigation. At first, she said the ghost was just a mass of light, like an orb. Then the light condensed into a personal form, about as tall as she was. She claimed that several people stood in 2 rows with a few feet of space between them, and that this glowing figure walked, or rather glided, back and forth between those ranks. So close that, if she had been solid, they could have reached out and touched her. Mary said that when the figure passed her, it felt like it should have brushed against her, but there was no sensation. Just light, trembling constantly, the way a flame flickers. Then the figure lost its shape, dissipating into a sort of mist and vanishing. Others described the apparition similarly, not a transparent human shape, but literally made of light, with the particles of that light in motion. And then there was her voice. Witnesses said it could sound as if it were right next to them, then instantly move to the far corner of the cellar, then back again, as if the sound itself was darting around through the air. Sometimes half the room could hear her clearly, while the other half, standing just as close, would hear nothing. At times, Nelly sounded weak, like someone dying after childbirth, perhaps. But other times, her voice boomed so loud it literally shook the house. Sometimes people in the room said they heard every word, while the person standing next to them, caught almost nothing. When people asked Nelly why she appeared in a dark cellar instead of, someplace far less creepy and terrifying, she reportedly said she did not want to scare the children upstairs. And then there was the way she looked. To some, she appeared as she had in life, a young woman, healthy and familiar. To others, she looked like only the shape of a human in a winding sheet, cradling what looked like it might be a baby. And she could switch between these forms quickly, faster than any living person could ever slip into and out of a costume. With so many strange displays, it didn't take long before people started freaking out, arguing about what this really was. Was it truly the soul of a dead woman? A demon? An elaborate hoax? Plenty of people in Sullivan and nearby towns wanted nothing to do with this. They saw it as blasphemous, demonic, or at least ridiculous. Some thought Lydia and her family were running an elaborate scam to marry her into the wealthier Butler family. Others thought Lydia herself was some kind of witch, a girl in league with something dark. Her reputation trashed, and her reputation was trashed, and her family was ostracized. There were accusations, unsurprisingly, of trickery. Some skeptics assumed that the Bladells were hiding some sort of lantern somewhere in the cellar, some early projector-like device. Others suggested Lydia might be using some kind of hidden instrument to produce the voice. But when people tried to test those theories, when skeptics did things like stand right next to Lydia, even holding her arms, or staying close enough that she couldn't possibly have set up an apparatus, the encounters continued just as before. Skeptics searched the cellar repeatedly, found nothing, no hidden panels, no strange devices, no props. One witness pointed out that the cellar itself, rough, cluttered, and damp, was exactly the worst place to try and stage a complex illusion in front of dozens of people. Also, there was no known technology in the year 1800 that could project a moving 3-dimensional globe of light that then turned into a woman and walked in a circle around 30 people. That doesn't mean it was not a hoax. Human beings can be incredibly creative when they're properly motivated, but if this was a hoax, it was wildly intricate and well done. One that you wouldn't think some rural farmer and his teenage daughter with no prior experience working as master illusionists could come up with. Still, investigations continued. On August 9, 1800, a man named John Uren snuck into the cellar through a small window and tried to imitate Nelly's voice in the knocking. Other young men joined in, hammering on beams, yanking each other's arms, turning the whole thing into a prank. But those antics were discovered immediately and documented. Witnesses said it was obviously faked, that literally no one confused that nonsense with the more serious manifestations they'd seen and heard earlier. Meanwhile, whether hoax or haunting, the controversy just kept growing. Lydia tried to run away at one point just to escape the scrutiny she faced. But according to witnesses, the ghostly voice actually followed her, warning her in front of others that her suffering would sail with her if she tried to flee. The town was now divided. Some were convinced Nelly was a fraud or something demonic. Others believed she was exactly what she said she was, a spirit sent from God. And now the story takes a much darker turn. Despite his reservations, despite the town's growing unease, Abner eventually accepted the marriage his ghostly houseguest was demanding. And on May 28, 1800, 15-year-old Lydia Bladell was married to 29-year-old George Butler at Butler's Point. And the very next day, in front of about 20 witnesses, the apparition appeared yet again. According to those present, Nelly prophesied in front of all that Lydia would give birth to one child and die during childbirth, just as she had. After this, Nelly vanished for exactly 63 days. In her absence, a debate raged. Was that prophecy a manipulative threat? Was some evil force trying to repeat its tragedy? Was God really using a dead woman's ghost to endorse a controversial marriage? When Nelly finally came back, she wasn't just matchmaking anymore. August 1st, 1800, she appeared in the Bladel cellar before a large group. Witnesses said she spoke at length on religious topics: heaven, the state of the soul after death, God's mercy. She confronted skeptics, called people out by name, acted almost like a glowing, floating preacher, weaving theology and supernatural showmanship together. Then on the night of August 8th into the 9th, she appeared again before roughly 30 witnesses. People reported seeing her pass through members of the crowd at multiple points. One man, Jeremiah Bunker, described watching her shape repeatedly shift from a human form to a formless bright substance and back again, vanishing and reappearing in an instant. Others said the particles of her shining form were in constant motion, as if she were made of living fire. By this point, it's estimated that well over 100 people had either seen or heard what they believed to be the ghost of Nelly Butler. And then, exactly as predicted, in March of 1801, 16-year-old Lydia Butler died after giving birth to her first child. And the child died as well. Why? Why would the spirit of a young woman who had died along with her child come back to push another young woman to marry her husband, knowing that their marriage would end in the exact same kind of tragedy? What was the point of that? What forces were at work here? We only know about this story at all today because of Reverend Abraham Cummings. Cummings was a traveling minister, a Harvard-educated preacher tending to the region around Sullivan, Maine in the early 1800s, who heard of the talking spirit in the Bladel's basement. At first, he wasn't impressed by the ghost. He thought the whole thing was unseemly and spiritually suspect. He complained that a truly heavenly messenger wouldn't ever choose to haunt a cellar. But Cummings was also curious. So he visited, and he heard things he couldn't believe. He saw things he couldn't deny, and he became a believer. Years later, in 1806, Cummings claimed that he had his own final private encounter with his spirit. He reported he was walking through a field on Waukeag Neck, some distance from any house, when he noticed what he assumed was a white rock. A few minutes later, he glanced back and saw that the rock was no longer on the ground. It was floating in midair. He watched it swell into a globe about 2 feet across, glowing white with a reddish tint, like a damask rose. Then, in an instant, he claimed that the globe shot across the distance between them as fast as lightning and formed into a female figure wearing a dress. He was so stunned he couldn't speak, and now he knew he had to share this story with the world. In 1826, he published everything he had been collecting, more than 30 first-hand accounts, including his own, in a little book with a very long title. Immortality Proved by the Testimony of Sense, in which is considered the doctrine of specters and the existence of a particular specter. It wasn't a ghost story for entertainment. For him, it was proof that the soul survives death. Modern researchers like Marcus Labrizzi and Dennis Boyd have tracked down records of the people mentioned in his pamphlet. They found gravestones. They've confirmed that the witnesses were real locals, often related and woven into the community. And now today, historians and paranormal buffs alike point to the Nelly Butler case as possibly the first documented haunting in U.S. history. The first time a ghost's appearance, or appearances, were carefully recorded in writing with multiple witnesses backing each other up. So does that make it true? Not necessarily. But it does make it very interesting, if nothing else. So what do we do with all of this? From a skeptical angle, you can argue the encounters resulted from a combination of social pressure, group hysteria, manipulation, and maybe some deliberate trickery. The whole ghost demands a controversial marriage thing is creepy. The age difference is uncomfortable, even in its historical context. Lydia wanting to leave town and being told by a disembodied voice that she couldn't escape, pretty disturbing. You can see why some locals thought this was not the work of heaven. From a believer's angle, it's one of the richest early ghost cases we have. A chatty, almost evangelical spirit, backed by sworn statements from more than 30 eyewitnesses who staked their reputations on what they'd experienced. And then there's a darker possibility some people floated at the time, one that I wonder about now, that this was not a harmless spirit or a simple hoax, but something else, something evil. Something that might have worn the face and memories of Nelly Hooper Butler, but that was far more interested in repeating a tragedy than comforting anyone.
Yeah, this is a great story.
Yeah, I thought so too. And usually ones that old, I am a little nervous at this point. I mean, we listen to fan feedback, and I know that a lot of times, they're just kind of boring.
Yeah.
or they just kind of read as pretty hokey.
But
But I was like, oh, this one actually has like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, so creepy that any entity, evil or otherwise,
Yeah.
would want a 15-year-old to marry a 29-year-old. That is bothersome on so many levels.
I mean, when you go back into that era of history, doesn't make it right at all, but like wildly common.
Yeah.
Once a woman was like, childbearing age.
Yeah, once she got her period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's like the age limit for the dude, there was no limit.
I mean, really,
It
we
was
still see that today.
True.
Let it be heard.
But it was just like, can this person provide for this girl?
Yeah.
And can this girl give kids to this family? Like that.
Well, and it was
yeah.
and different circumstances, right?
Totally.
Like you're trying to raise a family to run the farm, and disease is rampant, and
rampant. On times, like I just went over a story, and I know I've come across this before, but I was like, oh shit, I forgot how bad it was. But the mortality rate for children under the age of 5 in the year 1800, so actually perfect for this story.
Yeah.
Almost 50%.
Woof.
Almost half of all kids in the U.S. didn't make it to the age of 6.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
That's why families had like 15 kids.
Yeah.
Because it's like 7 might make it to adulthood.
Ugh. Can't imagine.
Oh my God, just so much, just constant grieving.
Constant.
Yeah.
And I guess just like a weird acceptance. I can't imagine like what the relationship with death was like then, because it was like, yeah, you're excited to be pregnant and give birth, but there's also a part of you that's like, fuck.
Oh my gosh.
Like this could,
This could be the last time.
This could be the last time for me. This could be the last kid. Like but now don't get me started on mortality rates now of mothers even just in America.
I know we're moving in the wrong direction now.
Woo, buddy. It's so scary. And it's scary to be pregnant anywhere at any time. I mean, I obviously have never birthed a child, but and there's different scenarios everywhere, all sorts of different things, but it's just like so crazy to go back in time and think about like every time you got pregnant, you were probably like, okay, in 9 months from now, my life could be over.
Oh yeah, it'd have to be on your mind on some level.
Whew, yeah.
And I do wonder, like, would you be like a little less attached to your young children back then? I mean,
no, I know that's what I was thinking. No, but like it's just so common.
Yeah.
So are you?
Let's wait before we invest too much affection in this kid until like we see that they make it at least to 6 or something.
I know.
I mean, probably not. But it's like that would just suck.
Yeah.
Like you love him so much, and you're like, lost another one. Or was it like more like
you made it sound like a lost sock? Shoot, lost another one.
I know. I just picture back then your relationship with little kids being more like a pet owner to a goldfish, as opposed to pet owner to a dog.
Oh,
right. You're like, like now that it's fun when a goldfish dies, but you're like, okay,
saw it coming.
Flush down the toilet, move on.
Oh no, but I don't think they were flushing babies down toilets. But
the story happened so long ago, and the location where it happened no longer stands.
Wait, there's no like selfies or
no selfies no like little selfies of people in that cellar. So how about I share, speaking of dogs, 2 photos of our dogs wearing hoodies.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed.
Who doesn't like a doodle in a hoodie? First, there's Penny.
Oh my God,
taking her little nap.
Penny Booperton.
Mm-hmm.
For my birthday, Penny got me a hoodie for herself, and it's real cute.
And then our hoodie lover, little Dee Dee.
Oh, Ginger Bear.
Taking a nap. Ginger has done the funniest thing lately where her hood from her hoodie, when it goes over her eyes, she just immediately accepts that she's blind and makes no effort to try and see it. But it's like she's okay with it. She doesn't seem upset.
Care. Tails up. She's still sniffing around. But this morning, when I was coming upstairs, I was like, Gigi, are you stuck on the steps?
Oh, yeah.
She was 3/4 of the way down
I
the staircase. So she's like, it's like 6 or 8 steps, let's say. She's, almost at the bottom. She's got 2 to go. But she's just standing there. And I was a little bit concerned
like
for a second.
Like a statue game. She's frozen.
Yeah, I was like, Ginger? She's still not moving. Tail up. Like she's doing fine. And I was like, Dee Dee, what's going on? And then I walked over and I'm like, oh my God. As she was going down the stairs, her hood fell over her eyes. And so she was just petrified and not moving.
Yeah. And I feel like who knows how long she would have stood like that.
Honestly, probably for a while.
We did do one mean thing with Dee Dee and her hood. Not that she would get hurt, but it's probably a little bit mean. But we pulled her hood over her eyes in the basement. We played this little ball game just to see what she would do if we because she goes nuts for these squeaky balls.
Yeah, and she's a great sniffer. So honestly, there was a part of me that was like, I bet she'll just sniff it out. Like she can sniff out anything. It's incredible.
Yeah. It was like a Looney Tunes cartoon. She just ran for the ball and ran straight into a pillar.
Yeah, there's these support structures.
No,
she was fine. She didn't make a sound.
No sound. You just heard a little hollow bonk. and then she just like rerouted and just kept trying to go for it. But like
She'd be fine if she was blind.
We joke in the family of like she kind of reminds me of, you haven't seen this movie, but like the dude from The Great Lebowski. She is just so chill, but like just such a weird level, but also like you kind of like love it where it's like I wish I could be that chill.
Yeah, she's just like whatever.
Yeah.
I go along with. She just goes along to get along.
Yep, she is the master of just go with the flow.
Whereas Penny is an uptight little bitch.
True.
She's rough sometimes. Okay, well, I've got 2 stories for you if you want to settle in with your Layla.
Yeah.
Yeah, what Layla do you have this week?
The traditional Layla, the
Trad Layla.
Trad Layla, the what, brown?
Yeah.
Tan maybe.
Tan. I know, it's like a orangey brown, It's gingerbread.
Yeah, it's colored gingerbread.
Okay, gingerbread Layla.
Gingerbread Layla.
All right, here we go. Hello, king and queen of the spooks and psychedelics.
Hello.
I'm an avid fan of the podcasts, especially Dan's Nightmare Fuel series. And I've been a fan of Dan since Here Come the Spoons.
Oh man, a long time.
I know Dan has mixed feelings about criminal defense attorneys, so I thought maybe he would enjoy a spooky story from my early days of daily jail visits when my legal career first began. While I am no longer a criminal defense attorney for some reasons that overlap directly with Dan's intermittent disdain for the practice, during my first few months as an attorney, I met a man in a hospital jail who still inhabits space in my brain nearly a decade later. The morning started out as shitty as any other as I made my way through the county jail to meet with a client. I was a little more on edge that day, though, because the client I was there to see was being housed in the hospital wing of the jail. I had only been there a couple of times before as an intern when I was learning the ropes, and I had seen how strange and sometimes scary a hospital jail wing can be. Before I was shadowing a seasoned attorney. On this day, I was alone. To get to the hospital wing of that particular jail, I had to walk through the grass Gen Pop yard, which, that morning, was full of inmates getting ready for their daily work details. The guard unlocked the gate for me and waved an arm, indicating he would not be escorting me through the yard. Some guards are great, have no qualms with defense attorneys, and I fish with a couple of them to this day. Others, though, are either dyed-in-the-wool haters of anyone who represents the inmates under their guard, especially those of us who were private and not public defenders, or they're just plain lazy. I was once left in a small concrete room for a full 10 minutes as I pressed a panic button repeatedly after a client told me he was going to kill me because I couldn't get him out of jail for a murder he definitely committed on camera in a public bar. My abilities to talk my way out of trouble were really put to test that day. Whatever the case, I was on my own as I strolled across the grass towards the entrance of the hospital wing in tight leather dress shoes, trying to mind my business and rush through one of the many tasks on my docket for that morning. About halfway to the hospital wing entrance, I heard, Hey, white boy, you a lawyer?" I was the only person in the yard wearing a suit, and I was, and still am, very white, but I tried to ignore him. "Hey man, I need a lawyer." This happened all the time, and I tried as politely as I could to address him over my shoulder while I apologized and told him that I was in a hurry to go see a client, but I'd give him a card on the way out. That was a practiced response that usually ends these sort of confrontations. "Well, fuck you then!" I turned to see a huge dude barreling towards me with terrifying speed and intensity. The guy had to be nearly 50 yards away, but he was coming, and he was coming fast. I lifted my leather trial bag and took my lucky metal pen out of my suit jacket, my useless shield and sword that were my only defenses while on jail property. We aren't even allowed to have our cell phones. I braced myself for the worst, which I knew was soon to come. I was about to become the talk of the courthouse early in my legal career, but for all the wrong reasons. Out of nowhere, 2 other huge inmates tackled my would-be attacker to the ground, both yelling at him and laughing all the while. "Come on, man, you trying to get us all on lockdown?" And that white boy probably would have fucked you up. I appreciated the vote of confidence, and I still laugh when I think back on hearing that, but that definitely would not have happened. I've been scrappy in my past, sure, but I'm not a big dude, and I was confined to a suit and caught off guard. Though I think the guy would have destroyed me even if I was dressed in full football pads and armed with boar hunting spears. "Thank you, fellas," I yelled in gratitude and rushed into the entrance of the hospital wing. Icy cold air tinged with the smell of sweat and heavy disinfectants invaded my nostrils and then burned my lungs as I bent over to catch my breath and coax my balls back down from my throat. I couldn't have known that wouldn't be the most disturbing experience of my morning. I waved my bar card at the entrance guard for identification, and I made my way to the elevator and up to where the inmates were housed in the hospital ward. The inmates being held there were either too physically injured or too mentally ill to be included in the general population of the jail. I was less than thrilled to be there, especially because I was very familiar with the client I was there to see. He was a repeat customer of our firm, and he was as crazy as a Raid-sprayed cockroach. On top of that, the hospital wing itself was nerve-wracking to be in. The inmates are housed in a large, sterile, and completely open room. 20, maybe 30 cots were spread across the concrete floor, spaced just a couple of feet apart, and all manner of injured and or severely mentally unstable inmates meandered openly about in the room with only one guard sitting behind a large half-circle desk at the back wall. I checked in at the desk and met my client without incident, other than the nearly unbearable aggravation of spending 30 minutes listening to his rambling nonsense just so I could get him to sign one simple document that benefited him greatly. After the meeting, I made my way back to the desk to check out, my mind already focused on the 100 or so tasks I had in front of me for the rest of the day. As I crossed the room, trying to avoid eye contact with any other inmate, I heard that familiar refrain, "Hey man, you a lawyer?" This time, though, the question wasn't yelled at me. It was asked in a smooth, confident, and, thinking back on it now, an incredibly captivating voice. The voice drew my attention to my left, and I saw an inmate seated in a wheelchair at the edge of the half-circle desk looking up at me. He was a man of beautifully mixed ethnicity, and his lightly toasted brown skin juxtaposed with the eyes that I still cannot stop seeing all these years later. The inmate's eyes were a shade of green I had never seen before and I haven't seen since. That was particularly potent for me because I painted cars for almost a decade before becoming a lawyer, and I have worked to recreate just about every shade of color on the planet. Luminescent jade green is the closest description I can come up with, even as I see those eyes in my mind while I write this, but that's not quite apt. The eyes were hazy, but only slightly, and they looked like someone was shining a flashlight through a tide-worn piece of glass. The man's eyes weren't kind, and they weren't angry by any means either, but they did demand a response from me that I reacted to unconsciously at the time, and surprisingly in hindsight. "Yes, I'm an attorney," I responded, changing my course slightly to walk over to the stranger's wheelchair. "What do you need?" Maybe it was the fact that he was speaking politely and was clearly injured that drew most of my attention. I was also a personal injury attorney at the time. Insert all the lawyer jokes you want at this point. And even in my young career, I had helped the firm I worked for represent multiple, very valid, excessive use of force victims. I live in the Tampa Bay area of Florida, which hosts a damn war zone in the streets that closely encompass the beautiful beaches and nightlife that people from across the country flock to for a vacation, or to take up residence in hopes of a peaceful coastal retirement. But I think now, no, I'm pretty certain now, that there was more that spawned the encounter than a young, hungry attorney willing to give anyone the time of day because I thought maybe some money could come my way. The man told me about how he was run over by a cop car while his friend was being arrested for something he had nothing to do with. I'd heard similar stories before and many times since. Often those stories were an excuse, but sometimes one was legitimate explanation. Benefit of the doubt at first. If there is doubt worth having, let facts through discovery prove otherwise. That's the mindset I tried to keep as a lawyer, though age and experience now make that difficult sometimes. So I listened to the wheelchair-bound man's story for a few minutes. His lips never smiled, but his eyes never stopped smiling. Then, while he was speaking, I had the feeling that I knew the man, a feeling that made no sense then and makes even less sense now, but I still can't shake it. And that's right about the time shit got weird. The inmate asked for my business card, and I was looking down to retrieve one from my trial bag when I felt his voice inside my head. I didn't hear it, I felt it. "You need to leave now, Corey." I looked back at the man's face, and those green eyes slid sideways and then back to me. I looked to the right to see a very large, very obviously mental ill man lumbering between the cots towards me. "You a lawyer?" Behind him, 2 other white jumpsuited inmates followed, staring at me intently. I can't remember if I ever gave the jade-eyed man my business card, and that still bothers me. What I do remember is the one guard in the room yelling, "Leave the lawyer alone!" as I quickly made my way to his spot at the desk so I could sign out and get the fuck out. Before I could even try to process what was happening, I was surrounded. 10 or so inmates, all of whom were mentally ill because they were physically able to reach me, began to form a screaming cluster around me, all of them trying to make their cases for why they should be released and why they needed a lawyer. I hope this doesn't sound inhumane of how I felt at the moment, but imagine being instantly dropped into a room full of unfamiliar large breed dogs that all start to close in on you at once. They might not hurt you. In fact, they probably won't if you stay cool, but they could hurt you. Badly, and they might. I could barely hear the guard over the cacophony of the yelling inmates as he screamed at me to just go, man, just get the fuck out of there. I lifted my trial bag in front of my chest, turned towards the desk, and I saw a sea of inmates swaying between me and the exit. I couldn't see the door through the crowd. Left, Corey, left. I didn't take the time to look at him, but even in that moment of chaos, I was creeped out and confused by how the wheelchair inmate's strangely soothing voice was somehow able to cut through all the yelling. I bolted towards the door. I got a few feet away from its handle when I heard the voice again, much more intensely the second time. "No, Corey, wrong door. Go right." I realized then I was heading straight for a tiny storage closet that would have trapped me with the surge of mentally ill inmates crashing in around me. "Leave the lawyer alone!" the guard screamed through the intercom system, but that did nothing to stop the inmates from continuing to swarm me. I changed my direction towards the correct exit, and I heard the welcoming buzz of the heavy-duty electronic lock opening. I yanked the steel door open just in time and just wide enough to squeeze through, and I slammed it shut behind me, holding it tightly until I felt the heavy lock re-engage. I took a few seconds to gather my breath and my wits, and then I looked through the door's small, square safety glass window. The crowd was dispersing, and I saw him, still seated in the wheelchair, still in the same place where I had spoken to him, still staring at me with those indescribably green eyes. Good. His mouth didn't move, and there was no way I could have heard him speaking through the closed security door. The word, in his voice, was in my head. And that's when I realized that his voice had been entirely in my head since he told me I needed to leave. Those jade eyes burned into my own for a brief moment, staring with an intensity I still can't forget, before I turned and hauled ass towards the elevator. And that's it. Not super crazy, not super scary, but this happened to me, and nearly a decade later, I still think about that day often. I don't remember telling the wheelchair inmate my name when he spoke, and I'm still not sure I gave him my business card. But his voice spoke my name into my brain 3 times. To my knowledge, I haven't seen this man after that eventful day at the jail, and thankfully, I've never had his voice in my head again either. But those eyes still ambush my dreams from time to time. Sometimes they even burn through my waking thoughts, and I know they always will. Corey.
I love that story.
Yeah, it's so strange, huh?
Because it does have a paranormal vibe as far as like how could his voice travel like that, and just him hearing it with inside his head. And then also just Corey, I just was thinking that whole story. I'm like, is this normal? Like the setup as far as like the jail hospital
like infirmary or whatever?
Yeah, psych ward, infirmary. Yeah, exactly. Where it's like 20 to 30 beds, one guard behind a desk who seemed kind of half committed to his job. Like that's insane to me that a bunch of these guys who are mentally unstable, possibly, if not probably, violent offenders are pursuing him. And the guy's basically like, all right, guys, come on, enough. Let's cut it out. But like not getting up from his desk, not like going to stand in between him, Corey, and these guys. And then just like that thing about like walking through Gen Pop, the yard. I'm like, how is that allowed? Just to walk through with no guardian, no, escorts? That's crazy.
I mean, the way Corey, so just like working backwards, the way Corey explains like walking through the yard, it's like, it sounds like in this prison, in this scenario, in Tampa, it's luck of the draw in terms of what guard is there to let you in. So maybe there's
That's
a guard.
Wild.
And I, like you, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's common.
Yeah.
But I have to say, my gut tells me probably more common than we think.
Yeah, because I know that there are rules and all that, but also there is what actually happens.
Yep.
And like with private prisons.
Exactly where I was going.
Yeah. Yep. That's terrifying.
And fucking greasy palms and all the different things. And then, in terms of the mental, physical health facility, the infirmary, the hospital there, whatever, I do imagine that it is wide open spaces like that, or that it should be, because how many times have we heard horror stories of prison doctors doing horrific shit to inmates? So if you have an open space, it's more, hopefully it's less likely that it will happen.
More transparent.
It's more easily monitored. And I mean, the guard that's there, I just imagine that it's probably just like some person who's making shit wages, doesn't want to fucking get hurt by these mentally ill inmates, is not trained to deal with mentally ill or physically ill people.
Yeah.
Like that is not, it almost makes me think of like how a police officer is not, from my understanding, not a cop, but it's like they're not trained to deal with mental health crises.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe at a base level, but it's like this guy's probably just trying to get a paycheck, take it home to his family, pay his bills. And he's like, I'm not going to fucking risk.
Right.
I would rather that the inmates attack each other than they attack me. And so he's just yelling at the guard, or at Corey, essentially, like, you don't have to sign out, just fucking get out of here, man.
Yeah.
But he's not going to insert himself because it's 20-1?
I know. The scariest
Prisons
part of that
are so
story.
fucking scary.
Yeah, exactly. That was the scariest part of that story to me, was just the setting. I mean, it's very cool. Like the jade green-eyed guy.
Totally.
Something paranormal there. But I just immediately went to like so many. I used to watch before I started Timesuck and was kind of work-wise doing true crime. But I would just sometimes at night, if I was on the road, just for like background noise, there would always be like these prison documentaries.
Yes. I know there was a phase of that.
Yeah, they were just on it late at night on like, what would it be, MSNBC?
I think it was on like TLC or some shit.
Yeah, so those kind of channels. But it was
Bravo.
Yeah. It was just like, kind of monotone and stuff, so you could fall asleep to it, but also terrifying if you paid attention.
Yeah.
And just that fascinating, we were like, my God, these places are so scary.
Was it called like Locked Up?
I think one was called Locked Up.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was just, and there were just so many of them, and always so scary, where they're just these guys who have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And they have mental problems where they don't understand consequences the same way. They have violent tendencies. They want to hurt people. Oh, so scary.
Yeah. Hurt people.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, it's just, the system's so broken.
Like a guardian angel in there looking out for Corey.
I know, that is what it feels like. Yeah. Really. It like Corey said, it's not the scariest, but there's something about it that is quite unsettling.
Yeah. No, that was a great one. And Corey, like, really, that was Corey and you, whoever, the combination of you two, like, really put that into a great story.
Oh, no. I'm like, Corey's funny.
Yeah. Funny.
I want to hang out with Corey.
I could really picture it.
Yeah. I like his own self-deprecating humor about attorneys.
Mm-hmm. And I do understand that we need defense attorneys. There's a lot of good ones out there.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I just, he's referring to me just, sometimes there are these terrible, terrible people.
Yes.
Who it's like everybody knows they did these horrific things.
Uh-huh.
And then when that person's like trying to get them out in like a loophole or something and stuff, I do get it where you gotta like to protect future cases, but at the same time, why would you work very hard to try and help that person?
Yeah.
I know it's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. All right. Well, let's skip that social commentary and jump into another tale. And this guy just gets right into it.
Okay.
Hey guys, love the podcast. I'm writing to you today to share one of my ghost stories. When I was in grad school, I worked several jobs. One of them was as a substitute teacher for the Kirksville School District in Kirksville, Missouri. One day, I was asked to substitute for a special needs student who was in kindergarten. The kicker was that it wouldn't be in the primary school, rather the Family Advocacy Center, or the FAC, which was across the street. The FAC building was the old Adair County Infirmary. Yes, an old hospital. I was to pick up the key at the school, open the fac, and then wait for the student to be dropped off by bus. While there by myself, the building gave an odd vibe, and it made me feel very uneasy. I decided to wait outside for the child, and when he arrived, we went inside to the main area to begin covering his lessons for the day. The main area was a large, open room in the center of the building, which looked as though it was used to treat several patients at the same time. While we were working, I could hear people entering the building and walking up and down the steps and the hallways. During our study breaks, the child wanted to explore the building. We started upstairs, but found no one there. When the fac director finally arrived, I told her about the noises, and she just shrugged it off and told me it was, quote, normal. The director then gave a tour of the building to a group of volunteers. Once the tour was complete, the director left for the rest of the morning, and we continued our day. Later in the day, the child wanted to explore the basement. The stairwell that led to the basement was blocked by a large steel door. The door was unlocked. I propped it open using an arm that was attached to the door, which attached to a hook, which attached to the wall. I secured the door, checked it, and it didn't budge. About halfway down the steps, goosebumps covered my body. I was then startled by the sound of the door slamming shut behind us, despite being securely held open. We made it to the bottom of the stairs, and the basement was covered in total darkness, not a single light on anywhere. Unease overcame us both. The child declared that he was scared and bolted right up the stairs with me close in tow behind him. Unfortunately, a little while later during our next study break, the child wanted to return to the basement to explore further, and I didn't want to lose face to a kindergartner, so off we went. Again, I propped the door open, and I checked it twice this time. The door, again, didn't budge. We were halfway down when the door slammed shut. As we began to walk through the basement, I noticed an open door to my right. There was a second door on the other side of the room where a dim light was on. That room was tiled, floor to ceiling, and nausea took over my body. My student must have felt it too, because he took off running for the stairs with me right behind him. Honestly, I almost ran him over getting back upstairs. We continued his studies while more people were coming and going from the building. Then the director returned at some point, and I shared with her that a variety of people had been heard coming and going all day. She was adamant that no one else was there all day. I proceeded to tell her about the light in the basement as well. She asked me if it was the back room off the first room to the right of the stairs, which I confirmed. The director told me not to worry about it because, quote, it'll just take care of itself, and then left again for the rest of the day. By now, I really wanted to take the child back to the main school, drop him off, and call it a day. But alas, I was a broke grad student, so that wasn't an option. After lunch, we again began his schoolwork. While reviewing a worksheet, I heard someone come into the building and walk down the hall towards the room we were in. Thinking the director had returned, I turned to greet the person entering the room. It was not the director. It was a well-dressed white male wearing a white doctor's coat and carrying a vintage doctor's bag. As the doctor entered the room, chills raced through my body. I was paralyzed and found myself struggling to breathe. The doctor looked directly at me, gave me a curt head nod, turned around, and as he walked out the door, he completely dissipated. Once again, I regained my composure, grabbed the child, our belongings, and I ran us outside. We finished the day outside playing basketball. When I returned the key, I told the school I would never work in that building again. The gal at the front desk said she understood, and I left. A couple weeks later, the school called me again. They needed someone to work with the child at the fac again, but none of the other substitutes would do it. I told them no initially, but when they offered me a full day's pay for only half a day's work, I caved. I was broke. I was a grad student with rent and a car payment due. As the student and I worked, we took frequent breaks. All of the same noises of people milling about repeated, same as the time before. When my replacement arrived, I bolted. That was the last time I ever worked in that building again. I couldn't find much on the old hospital. However, while doing my student teaching, I assigned my class a project centered on history in the area. As it turns out, the infirmary was used primarily for an outpost of a local mental institution from a nearby town. The site served to treat the more severe cases and was paramount to electroshock therapy studies. When the hospital ran out of money, the caretakers opened the doors and let the patients free, and the hospital closed. Hope all is well with you guys. Keep up the good work. Respectfully, GK.
Got it. That still happens where, it's like funding runs out
Uh-huh.
and they're just like, okay, you just got to go. And it's people who should absolutely, they're just not capable of
Yeah.
like living on their own. And then it feeds into like the homeless problem and stuff. It's so sad.
I didn't know that was like a real thing.
Yeah. I mean, if the funding's not there, the funding's not there. Especially if it's like a private institution.
I know, but don't they call the families and say like...
But the families aren't going to come get them, or sometimes they don't have families. But yeah, I mean, even I think in Santa Monica where we lived or just adjacent to Santa Monica, I feel like that might have happened there. There might have been like a halfway home or something that like folded or lost partial funding, which was why all of a sudden there was like a new population of like severely mentally ill people kind of in that one little area.
That's so fucked.
Yeah.
Like just that, like not even like the government, city,
Mhm.
local, national, like no institution is stepping in to say like, okay, hey, this foundation ran out of money, funding, grants, whatever. And so we have 30 people that are about to be displaced.
Yeah.
So we need to move them somewhere else. That's so insane.
I know it is. It's something I don't think we probably think about much, but it's like if there's X amount of funding for this population, especially when they're not children and adults, just, for whatever reason in the US, and everything's max capacity, then, I mean, well, they would do this even in like prisons. I don't know how much they're doing this recently, but like when there's like prison overcrowding in the past and all the prisons are like full, they would just go through and be like, okay, who do we let out way early? And some people that were supposed to be in for like 20 years might get out in 3 years.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be let out, but.
I've heard that more around like, all right, let's let out the nonviolent offenders first. People with like souped up drug charges that it's like, all right, you know, it was just weed or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But sometimes, violent offenders too, they're just like, okay, I guess you seem somewhat okay. Get out of here.
Jesus.
Yeah. And then,
what a time.
What a time. And then GK, when GK was talking about that little kid and go down in the basement, because like the little kindergartner wanted to check it out.
Uh-huh.
Younger me, it might have been just like wanted to be cool and be like, oh yeah, okay, let's check it out. But like older me would be like, oh no, we can't. They have security cameras. We'll get arrested if we go in there. I would just made up some lie immediately so I could save face and just hard stop to that thought.
Yep. Yeah.
Another good story. I love that one too.
Oh, great. I'm glad you enjoyed.
Yeah.
Should we do some shout outs?
Yeah. Do you want me to go or you to go first?
I can start. We can do a little back and forth.
Okay.
I would like to thank the following Annabelles for their continued support and for helping to make this year's Giving Tree possible from the Patreon side. We'll be giving updates on fan contributions and the overall success of the Giving Tree later this month. Julie Redding, Casey Casberg Santos, Scott Hildebrandt, Junior Smith, Jason Hines, and Katie Mack.
Yeah. Thanks to those Annabelles and thanks to the following Annabelles as well. No Kiri, Brandy Lochty, Benji, Will, Chris Hernandez, Jesse Morrow, VS, Justin Lawson, and the Sixth Crow.
Chris Hernandez, like you can see like tiny little like profile photos.
Yeah.
And I think I'm gonna be accurate here when I say Chris Hernandez has excellent hair.
Okay.
It was like maybe like long. It's
Yeah.
hard to tell in the photo. I can't even tell.
Thick and textured.
Yeah, I couldn't tell like female or male,
Yeah.
but whoever it is,
Wonderful
great hair. Beautiful hair. Jealous.
Some people do have, it is incredible. We're like, wow, you have really good hair.
I know.
Yeah.
True. Okay. A couple spoopy shout outs.
Yeah.
To Teddy Bale from Widow Bale. Have to say it like that. That's how it's written.
So cute.
We do it too. We get it. Happy 29th birthday. Thank you for all you do for me and the fur babies, Rugger and Winnie. I hope 29 gives you everything you want and more because you deserve the world. Last year in our 20s. Love you forever and always.
Oh.
To Leo from Virginia, happy 22nd anniversary. I can't believe these two high school sweethearts have been married for over half of our lives. Congrats on the job advancement. I'm looking forward to spending the rest of eternity with you, hopefully someplace near the Gulf of Mexico when we are empty nesters. I love you, smoochy babe. To Alicia from David, I'm sorry we're going through this right now. You're a strong, badass witch. promised I'd never call you the B word. Seeing you cry as we sat in the hospital after having to make a terribly hard decision broke my heart. We'll make it through this, and we will hug the 3 babies we do have.
Oof.
Yeah. To my wonderful, beautiful wife, Bailey Jo, from your loving husband, Scotty, I love you, big bunches. And that is all.
And that is all. Thank you for listening. That's our show. Thanks for continuing to send in your personal tales of terror that Lynze reads each week to mystory@scaredtodeathpodcast.com. You can email us for everything else, info@scaredtodeathpodcast.com. Thanks once again to Logan Keith scoring today's show, to Heather Rylander organizing the My Story emails, and to book editor Drew Atana polishing and preparing listener stories for book number 7. Thank you to Sarah Finch for finding the second story I shared this week. I was able to find the first. We're on Facebook and Instagram where we post pics that accompany episodes and more. You can check out those doodles wearing hoodies at Scared to Death Podcast. Also a private Facebook group called Creeps and Peepers full of fellow horror lovers. Big thanks to the All Seen Eyes, the Creeps and Peepers moderators for just being wonderful people who make the community such a fun and welcoming place.
Yes, extra special shout out to them. They helped me through a really concerning situation.
Yes.
We had everyone will remain nameless, but we had a very concerning email come in, and through the help of our admins and moderators, we were able to get a wellness check and possibly save somebody's life and getting them the help they need.
Absolutely.
So good job, guys. You're the best.
Yeah, you are the best. Enjoy your nightmares, Creeps and Peepers. Hope you were scared to death.
Bye.
If spirits threaten me in this place, fight water by water and fire by fire. Banish their souls into nothingness and remove their powers until the last trace. Let these evil beings flee through time and space. Evil may pass through, but hath no home here within, scared to death.
Mad Magic Productions.
All right, guys, come on. Enough. Let's cut it out.